Hi, welcome back to another episode of Nobody's Doing It Right, the podcast for those who are uncertain. My name is Kat. I am your host. And for today's episode, we're going to talk about how if that thing was meant to be, it would have been. And this isn't to say that anything in life is meant to be or not meant to be, right? You can decide to look at things the way you want to look at it, right? This is for anybody who just gets stuck in this headspace sometimes, which I've been there myself, and I've heard it from my friends, from people I've talked to in the calls I have. I've heard it a lot. This mindset of looking back at something, an opportunity, a relationship, whatever, and feeling like you missed out on it, right? It didn't work out, and you think, well, that's what was meant for me, and it didn't happen the way I wanted it to, and I lost this opportunity, and it just I did something and I messed it up, whatever, right? To look back on something and really regret your experience, your circumstances, or really not letting yourself live in the present moment because you look back at something and say, well, coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? Or it was meant to be, but I lost it. If it was really meant to be, right? If we're thinking about it this way, if it was meant to be, it would have been, right? It doesn't make sense to look at it any other way. So the fact that it isn't, that it hasn't been, means it might have never been meant to be, So I think this has helped me, at least, take some stress and pressure off of my shoulders, right? The weight of you messing up, the weight of you like just screwing something up and feeling like you ruined what was meant for you does not make sense in this scenario. Because if it was meant for you, right? If we're looking at it this way, if it was meant to happen, it would have happened. So the fact that it didn't happen means it was not meant to happen for you. Again, this isn't to say that this is 100% truth. It won't resonate with everybody, right? This is just for those of us who get stuck in rumination. The coulda, woulda, shouldas, the looking back and regretting things and making mistakes. And now you can't accept where you are in life. You can't look at your present moment and find some gratitude for it because you're so stuck in the past and what you did do or didn't do or said or didn't say. If it was meant to unfold for you, it would have unfolded, but it didn't. And I think that can be really peaceful and reassuring to sit with that, to think to yourself, you know what? If it was meant to be, it would have happened. And the fact that it didn't happen and it's not happening currently means, you know what? It's just not meant to be. And that's a good thing, right? Because there's so many scenarios that could be unfolding, right? The one scenario is that it wasn't meant to be, and it's futile to look back and think about what coulda, woulda, shoulda been, because that's not what your life was meant to be, and it's not what it is right now, right? And you didn't get to experience it, and that's just what it is, right? Or it's like, let's say in this alternate universe, alternate dimension, you did get to experience it, and you realized at the end of the day that, you know what, it actually wasn't aligned for you, and you are in exactly the same place you are right now without that thing. But you don't know that, right? Because you didn't get the opportunity to fully experience it and fulfill that narrative or that storyline in a sense. But the fact that it hasn't happened, and to look back and regret not being able to fully experience it or not being able to go through it, it's just doing you a disservice, right? It's not benefiting you in any way. It's holding you in the past. And I hear this a lot, specifically when it comes to relationships, right? Especially from those who struggle with avoidant tendencies. And I'm one of those people, right? You might hold yourself back from experiencing relationships, from being vulnerable, from showing someone that you care about them. And because of that avoidance, you don't fully show up in the way you want to fully give the relationship a go, like a proper try. And because of that, you hold on to the past a lot. You think about that one person that you did that to and you didn't say what you wanted to say to, or whatever, right? You look back and you keep ruminating and overthinking. And as somebody who has done this, who has been in this headspace and really regretted not being the kind of person I wanted to be in that scenario, as someone who has also gone back and redone it with that person to try and make it unfold the way in my fantasy it would have, right? In this alternate dimension when I did do all these things that were not, caused by my avoidance, right? When I did all these secure things, I did that. And guess what? It unfolded the exact same way. Because sometimes things are just not meant to be the way you think that they're meant to be for you. And it's okay to just trust that and accept it, even without having to go back and redo it or trying again. Of course, it's not to say that you shouldn't learn from that behavior and feel the consequences and repercussions of not taking the action you want to take or doing the things you want to do, of course, right? But you do have to balance that with acceptance and with moving forward and with being in your present moment and allowing yourself to be grateful for that as well. Because there are many instances where your present moment might be completely better than this alternate fantasy you're thinking of in your head of the coulda, woulda, shouldas, right? Like, had that thing unfolded this way, my life would be so much better. It might not have been at all. You might be exactly where you are right now, or you might have been worse off. You don't know. I think it can be beneficial just for your own mindset to accept that where you are right now is where you're meant to be right now. Of course, this is not to negate or disregard any pain or suffering or anything that could be happening in your present moment. It's not to say that what you're going through right now, your pain, your discomfort, anything like that is like, that's just what's meant for you and you should just be happy about it. No. This is just for anybody who ruminates so heavily on the past to the point where they cannot even find any good in their present, right? Any semblance of it in any way, because the present moment is the only moment that actually exists, right? Despite how painful it might be at times, despite how much discomfort you're going through, this is the only thing that actually exists. And if this is life right now, right? The only thing I think we can do in any scenario is try and find some semblance of good, just for our own benefit, right? Not for anybody else, not to be in this like toxic positivity headspace of like, no, every day should be great. And no, life sucks sometimes. It's not always great. It's going to hurt sometimes, right? But just for your own sake, to make things a little bit better, if possible, to find the good in every day if you can, right? And by holding on to the past, holding on to the coulda, woulda, shouldas, the meant to be scenarios that didn't happen, that would have made your life so much better right now, to do that is really holding you back from finding any present pleasure that you can find, or present, goodness that you can find. And that's doing you a disservice, ultimately. And this is something that I've had to really, really learn for myself and really implement in my life, because I still get stuck in this, right? I still get stuck in the headspace of, oh, if I just did this differently, if I did that differently, I would have ended up with that thing. That thing was meant for me, but it just didn't unfold because it was my fault. I did something wrong. Sometimes you don't do things wrong. Sometimes things are just not meant to unfold that way, and it's okay. And it's just, it's not always in your control. And I think this does tie into control issues, to perfectionism as well. This idea of like, it was meant to be, but I messed it up. I didn't do this. I should have done this. I could have, would have, whatever. You're not in control of everything. Not everything is in your power. And that's okay. It's okay to take a back seat sometimes and say, you know what? It unfolded exactly as it needed to unfold. It happened. I wouldn't have been able to change it anyway, right? Now, of course, there are many scenarios in life where your different actions do create different results, of course, right? But if something has happened and it's done, looking back and trying to change the past and ruminating and holding on to the past, that's not doing anything, right? The only thing you can do is take that knowledge, that information, that growth, and apply it to your present and your future. That's it. That's the only way you can truly honor your past self, right? But to hold on to the past and the coulda, woulda, shouldas and the meant to be's and think that, that thing was meant for me, that person was meant for me, but I screwed it up, or I let go of the opportunity, or I didn't follow through, or whatever. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense logically, because if it was meant to be, it would have been. And if it's not, then it wasn't meant to be. Like those two go hand in hand, as above, so below, or whatever. Like they're mirrors of each other. So if it's not happening right now, the only thing you can really do is accept that. And you know what? If it's not happening, it wasn't meant to be then, right? Because you can't look at the alternative and think, oh, it was meant to be. It's just that I changed the way it happened, or I didn't control it enough, or whatever. It's like, no, you can't have one without the other, right? So where you are right now might be exactly where you need to be, right? And I'm not saying that it's a good thing or a bad thing, or it just is, and just for your own sake, for your own mental stability in some scenarios, right? Accepting that and being like, you know what? If it was meant to be, if that relationship was meant to be, if that job opportunity was meant to be, it would have happened. It would have flowed. And maybe no efforts on my end would have changed that outcome. So maybe it's not in my power. Maybe I did exactly everything right and I still ended up here. So what now? What now, ultimately? And then it's important to ask yourself, okay, if it happened exactly as it needed to, it unfolded the way it did, I couldn't have changed it, because again, you can't go back and check these things in the past, and you can't time jump, of course. Okay, what now? So what do I do now? And that gives you the opportunity to really explore the alternatives for yourself, and to be able to really sit in the present moment and experience that fully, Because if you're stuck in the past, you're not experiencing the present. And the present will be gone before you know it. And then you're going to be looking back at this moment and thinking, oh, I should have taken more time to myself, or I should have enjoyed it more. I should have done this. And it's like you're going to be forever in this cycle of coulda, woulda, shoulda, because you're constantly thinking about the things that were meant to happen but didn't happen, or that you should have done better at, or whatever the narrative is, right? The only thing you can do is accept. That's really it. And I know it's so much easier said than done, and everyone talks about it and everyone's like, you just have to accept it. Acceptance is so important. It's like, yes, it is very important. And it's the only thing you can do, because life is full of uncertainty and ups and downs and pain and discomfort, but you can't control a lot of it. The only thing you can do is accept. So again, this is a mantra I use, but if it was meant to be, it would have been. That's it. It's so freeing to be able to say that to yourself in moments when you look back at something and you're like, oh, I messed that up. I screwed that up. It was meant for me. That person was meant for me, but I just didn't show up. If it was meant to be, it would have been, again, take with you whatever you wish you would have done differently and bring it into your present, bring it into your future, of course, but you cannot change the past. And if it was meant to be, it would have been, right? Maybe if it was meant to be, you would have learned earlier to not lean into your avoidance, right? There's so many scenarios here that could have happened, right? So to think of them, you can always be proven wrong. There's always an opportunity or an alternative scenario or an alternate dimension where things could have happened completely differently. So to even try to plan it out in your head or think about it or ruminate or consider what you should have done differently to make it different. There are so many things that could have unfolded that would have proven whatever theory you had about what you should have done completely wrong. So there's no point even thinking about it ultimately, because it is what it is now. You're here. So what can we do with what we have right now? That's it. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this was informative, and I hope it gave you a different perspective and a reframing a little bit, because I know how hard it can be to get stuck in that mindset, that rumination. I've been there. It's not fun. And I literally had to do the thing that everyone wants to do, which is go back and try again with a person or an opportunity to learn that it didn't matter what I did, because I acted completely differently the second time around and the same scenario happened. So maybe, just maybe, it's not about me. Maybe there are things outside of me that are going to happen as they happen and I can't control it, which is great. It's scary for those of us who have control issues, but it's also great. And it's also so freeing to accept that. But yeah, I hope this was helpful. If you want to talk about these things in more detail with me, feel free to book a one-to-one call. Of course, I'm not a therapist, as I say in almost all of my content, but I just like talking about this stuff. So if you want to pick my brain a bit, feel free to do that. You can also subscribe to my Substack where I write about these topics, and you can follow me on my social media. All the links will be in the show notes below, and I'll be back again soon with another episode.